by no means, I grew up in a very, very, difficult home life. Sometimes I don't even recognize myself. I was just carrying this anxiety of pressure. I always emphasize on what I stepped out of. You never see the big picture until you step farther back. But what I did was I actually stepped into my destiny.
Welcome everybody to the Rally Cry podcast. My name is Angel.
And my name is Tyler.
And you guys are here because you want to learn, you want to grow, and you want to move from the past and live in this moment. And I say this often, but yes, today we got a guest. And before I introduce you, I just want to make sure that you guys follow us on Instagram at The Rally Cries, and also make sure that you follow us on your favorite podcast platform. And today, I always like having an introduction because I think it's cool. So Ron is a wedding photographer where he catches the moment so that he can sustain a memory. His matrimony of photography has allowed him to create relationships with his clients and captivate the wedding of your day. Thank you, Ron, for being here.
Thank you for the introduction. Wow.
Yeah, I wanted to put matrimony. I was
my God, I couldn't even written that better myself.
I try to be creative. I think I got a little bit of my poetic side in there.
That's all right. I'm going to have to get a copy of that and put that on my about page on my website. That was describing you pretty well.
You know what?
I hear opportunity. Opportunity.
I'll put a little signature in the bottom just so, it's a little bit more personalized for you. Yeah. So I know we had a couple of times where, we were just talking and we talked about mental health. We talked about you and your photography, and you asked me a little bit of questions. And I thought it was a great idea for you to come on, talk about it on camera and let everybody know who you are and all the creative work that you do. And so I always like to start with how that came about. Like, what is your story that led you to who you are today, and why photography?
Well, I'm French Canadian, so when you give me a microphone, it is a conversation that is endless. The story, everybody's story is different, and everybody's story is unique to them. And for me, I got into photography a very different way. I didn't get into photography because I was born with a camera in my hand. I wasn't anything like that. The birth of my son was the reason why I got into photography. It was a difficult time when it took us 8 years just to get pregnant. And then when we finally had the baby, when we finally got pregnant, 12 weeks into the pregnancy, my wife started bleeding. So she had what's called a placenta abruption. So she was bed rest for the next 12 weeks. So 40 weeks is a normal pregnancy length. And at 24 weeks, we ended up going into the hospital because the bleeding wasn't stopping. The water broke. And they told us that if my son was going to be born now, there was a 3% chance of life.
Wow.
So 3% is not a very good odd. So we just, my church was there praying for us, and we were praying and just trusting God in the midst of all of that. So I'm a very faith-based business. God is everything I have is all because of God. And that's how I live my life. So going back to the story of my son. So we named him Samuel because it means God is heard. And his middle name is Andrew. So we named him Samuel Andrew biblically because of what we were going through in our lives. So he ended up being born at 25 weeks. And at 25 weeks, he weighed 1 pound, 7 ounces, and he was born at 25 weeks. So he was so small and underdeveloped that he ended up going straight into the NICU. So the neonatal intensive care unit at Bay State in Springfield was the one that was taking care of him. So that day that he was born was the day that my photography was birthed. They told us he was only going to live 3 days. So if he lives past 3 days, there's a lot of things that come along complications wise that we were going to have to go through in life about it. So we felt like this was our lot in life, and we're going to take whatever the Lord has given us. So I went out and bought a camera. And if I only had 3 days, I'm going to document all 3 days.
Mm.
If I only ended up with 3 weeks, I'm going to document all 3 weeks. If I'm going to 3 months, 3 years, he's now 23 years old.
Wow, God bless.
So how I got into photography is almost like a back way in, but I literally took pictures, not even knowing how to do it, not even knowing how to set up the camera, and nothing like that. That is the day that capturing your memories was birthed. That's how I got into photography.
Wow.
That is beautiful. Like,
Yo,
like
yeah.
in my opinion, I'm not here to boast, but that could be a movie. That sounds like it could be like a
Wow.
movie because of not only the adversity, I think the emotional impact, and most importantly the faith, because in a situation like that, like there's people that would already prime themselves to get ready to give up, get ready to give in, like, okay, like this is gonna happen. Let's just deal with what we have, and that's it. And
Mhm.
it is hard to think optimistically in a situation where like the odds are stacked against you. But like if the odds are stacked against you, then get your crew together and pray and have those people around you that really do believe in you, because now the odds aren't stacked against you. You've made it even, so now we're both odd. Now who's going to be the most oddball out of us?
Yeah.
I appreciate that, and I'm very careful how I tell my story, because
Mhm.
I don't, I try not to say it in a boastful way.
Mhm.
You know, but I'm very thankful, and adversity is what we were talking about before, that creativity,
Mhm.
and that mindset. So everybody asked me, that's really another part of where my mindset had to change. You're sitting in a hospital room and the doctors are telling you all of the things that are going to come along with that. I had to accept it, receive it, entertain it, but yet not believe it. And then that is
Mhm.
a very difficult thing to do, because with my eyes, I'm watching all of the bells, all of the things that are ringing, oxygen, all of the things that are in there. He was so small that my wedding band actually came off of, I took my wedding band off, which is the normal size wedding, and that would go all the way up his arm to his shoulder. That's how small and underdeveloped his skin wasn't even developed. His eyes weren't developed. His hair follicles weren't developed. He was about as long as a little bit longer than a dollar bill. So he was 12 inches long, all stretched out. But it was, and he's now 23. And I feel like one of the other struggles that had happened was there was no clothes for him. We literally had to buy doll clothes, which is back in the day, Cabbage Patch dolls. We
Mhm.
literally had to go to the store and buy a Cabbage Patch doll with a vest or a sweater or shirt of something. That was the only thing that would fit him, and basically just covered over him, just so he wasn't laying, in a diaper all day long, kind of thing. But how we got through that particular time was, we mentioned God, and we were praying, and whatever we felt like, whatever was going to happen was going to happen, and that was our lot in life. And we just believed that no matter what the situation was, we were just going to accept whatever it was, but still believed for the best.
Right.
Yes, doctor, I hear you. I hear and I know the statistics, but I'm just trusting God.
Right.
And every single morning for 165 days, I called every morning at 4 o'clock in the morning, because I went to work for 5. I
Mhm.
called up at 4 o'clock in the morning, and I got right to the NICU, and I said, how's my man of God doing today? And they would tell me how much apneas and bradycardias that he had overnight, what his oxygen level was, how he was restless or not restless. So he was in the hospital for 165 days, which is 6 months.
Wow. I really want to appreciate for you sharing that story, because like that,
You asked me how I got into photography. That's how I got into photography.
yeah,
How did I get into capturing memories? That's how I got.
that is very wholesome, because you would never think. A lot of times, sometimes people have different stories, right?
Correct.
And your story is very interesting. Not to take away from anyone else's story, but it's
Correct.
still the fact that how unique that is, and the fact
Correct.
that the the birth of that came from a birth of something else.
Yep.
And it's kind of just the fact of through all those adversities, that's one of the biggest adversities. You know, you're having a child, you're expecting a child, and those expectations can sometimes be over expected. If something like 3% is brought to your face, you're like, what do you mean? What do you mean 3%? And you know, a lot of emotions are in there, and be able to manage the emotions and then to believe, right? And then having people say, oh, but it's 3% though, but you're still believing that's more than that 3%. You know what I mean? I'm gonna say, you know, that 3%, I'm gonna put 2 zeros behind that and put 300% because he's 23 years old now, and and the fact that you call and say, how's my man of God doing? And that's
Every morning.
that's the awesome, and that's the attitude, right? The attitude that you giving yourself to say, hey, you know, I know the chances. That's why it's called chance. I'm gonna still believe the other chance though, regardless of how slim this is. If anything, it was 3% chance that this might happen, but if anything, it was the all 97% chance that where it is now. And for you know, you got in photography and, you know, figuring it out there because of how passionate you was for something else that led to now even be more passionate for what you do now, photography. Now with photography, I see that you do wedding. You could have did anything else. Like you could have did just baby pictures in that instance. How come you did wedding photography?
That's a great question. And I feel like everybody knows that that's probably the highest paid out of all of photography. It's the biggest ticket when it comes to that. You can make money at family sessions. You can make money at high school senior sessions. For me, I kind of got into it again backwards because going back to my son, I did not know 23 years ago that moment of capturing memories was going to catapult me into having a full-blown business and leaving my corporate job to do photography. If it wasn't for that moment, I would have never been catapulted into my destiny.
Right.
So if it wasn't for that adverse moment of all of that happening, I would have never been catapulted into my destiny. So how did I get into weddings? I just kept documenting his life. Everywhere we went, I had a camera. We just documented everything, you know, and when it comes to the things that come along with prematurity is, no lie, both of his ankles were sideways. So his ankle bone was coming through the side of his skin. So it's called club feet. So both of his legs were turned inwards. So the ability to not be able to walk was very prevalent in the possibilities of what was a possibility, if I can say it that way.
Yeah. Understood.
He played basketball. He played soccer. He played baseball. He did all of those sports, running, throwing, all those things. So in the process of him just growing up, I would take my camera and I would go take pictures of whatever he was doing, whatever sports he was doing, or our families or our get-togethers. I always had a camera in my hand since that point, because for me, that also caused me to document everything that was going on in our lives. So we would go to the parks, we'd take pictures. People that we would know, it's like, hey, can you take some pictures of my family? So started taking pictures of their family. And then led to, you know, doing, you know, family sessions. So I always thought that that was the direction I was going to go in, or kind of as a hobbyist. From there, when I turned 40 years old, I told my wife, I said, I didn't want a big party. I said, all I want to do is I want to get some money. So I'm going to get for my birthday presents. I'm going to go buy a studio kit for my living room. So my wife liked the part of the studio kit. She didn't like the part that it was in my living room, because I legit had to move cupboards out into the other room. Couch had to go sideways down the hall. Everything had to be moved out, moved all of my stuff inside of there. So I started doing family sessions all the time. So then family sessions turned into high school seniors. So then family sessions and high school seniors was where that direction was going. So a friend of mine got married and they had a photographer, but I knew it was a family friend of everybody that we knew. So I reached out to the person. I was like, hey, I said, would you mind if I kind of just followed along and just watched you like do what you do when it comes to wedding? Because I was intrigued with it, but it's a huge responsibility because there's no rain dates on a wedding. So you have to be able to adapt to whatever the weather's giving you that day and do good pictures and do right. So I followed her around for this wedding. I took more candid pictures than anything else, watched how she moved, watched how she did all of her stuff. And I fell in love with the fact that it's a very spontaneous avenue because there's always something going on during the wedding day. So to make a long story short, one of our other friends, so I delivered my pictures to my friend. So she was happy with that. She got the photographer's pictures and she got my candid pictures. So another friend of ours was getting married. And they, had even less money. So they're like, they weren't even going to do any photographer at all. So my first friend said, hey, hire Ron, pay him a couple of $100. This is what he did at my wedding. You're going to get something good out of that. So we did that wedding. For my first wedding ever, which was over 17 years ago. Fell in love with the adrenaline that comes along with the spontaneity that comes along with it. So I was still working my full-time job at this time, as a machinist over on Westover Air Force Base. So I was still doing that job. And then I would do the families and high school seniors, and then started advertising for families or weddings and things like that. And then I got 1 or 2, and then 3 or 4 and 5 or 6 and so on and so forth. So I kind of just got into it by somebody that didn't have a photographer to now 17 years later, I'm doing 35 weddings a year.
Right. And it definitely sounds as, you was you was in that position and able to get that.
Yeah.
Right. Like you was around family, and then being in your families, all the families were like, oh, can you take a picture of my family?
Yep.
You was like, of course, why not?
Yep.
Especially you having a camera, people would look and turn eyes every time when you got a camera. They're like, oh, what's he doing? Is he a professional? And they'll ask. And apparently they did. And then from there, it was kind of like a bigger family of a family friend was like, hey, let me just see what you do, because since I got into it, I want to see what you do because I've never done that. And it's also about like just asking questions and then just being, why not? Tell yourself why not. If I'm already around here, maybe I'll like it. And you did like it. You've been doing it for 17 years.
17 years now,
which is a long time. And now you're not even in your corporate job anymore, right? Exactly. You're long gone. You're like, no, I'm good.
Elevated and moved up.
Yeah. My original plan, and it's amazing how I've heard this quote before, that sometimes God listens to our plans and he laughs. So my original plan was to keep working the corporate job. It was a good salary, all the benefits that were there. So it was really good, and just keep doing the photography on the side. So I found the balance in doing the, 50 hours a week, 55 hours a week, working for the machine shop. And I was still at home at supper time every night doing homework with my kids, or I coached all their sports. So all their soccer, baseball, basketball, coached all their things. So I was always in that part of that. And I was always going to keep the photography in my back pocket as a, when I retire thing. A very long story short, a lot of things that happened since COVID, got into, working for the company that I was working for, and a few things that had happened. And I was next in line for my manager when he retired, which was during COVID. They gave him a separation package. So I was next in line. I was already pretty much doing the job, already for that part of it, just with no title and no salary.
Right.
So I got to the point where, I was told, okay, you're going to start doing it. So I started doing it. And then 4 months go by, and the new manager that had come in, because my old manager had retired, came in and suddenly said that he changed his mind. Now it was a big corporation, over 4,500 associates all over the global world. So big company. So I was like, well, so you really can't do that. That's not right. So I went to the HR department and I sat down with them and explained what happened. And, you never see the big picture until you step farther back.
Right.
And I knew, I was always aware that God has a plan, always aware of that. Even though this is where I get frustrated, because I can't see the full plan, because I can't see this part here. But once we step farther back, like now I see
right.
the plan from a different point of view. So I took the high road, and I was like, you know what? I was well within my rights to just, complain and get mad and get frustrated, and I didn't want to make any decisions out of haste. Um, Making a decision out of fear is not good. Making a decision out of haste and impatience is even worse.
Mhm.
I had to step back and say, okay, I need to, this is a big decision. I've been with this company for 32 years. Um, what am I going to do here? And I just went to my wife and I said, I can't trust them. I can't, if they can do this to me now, who's to say in 6 months they can do something, whatever else that they wanted to do. So
Right.
I went in, sat down. I said, okay, I'm putting in my notice. And I walked away from a 33-year company um, just to do the photography. And I never planned it that way. I always wanted to keep them separate because there's a lot of security with that corporate
Of
job.
course.
There's a lot of security with that with a lot of security.
Yeah.
And to do something that I love to do and I'm passionate about doing, it now became a job. This was now my income. I had to hustle to get, making sure, like before it was like, well, if I didn't get that wedding, no big deal. I still got my corporate salary and no big deal.
Right.
So it changes everything when it gets to that point. So yeah, that's how I got out of the corporate and into um, the doing the photography full time. And in hindsight, um, it was the best decision I ever did. I didn't realize how much anxiety that I was carrying in my body. The next day after I quit the job, um, there was no more pain in my shoulders. There was no more pain in my back. I was just carrying this anxiety of pressure that was not meant for me to carry. But once I stepped out of that, what I did was I always emphasize on what I stepped out of. But what I did was I actually stepped into my destiny. I
Right.
stepped into the place that I was meant to be. This was my calling, and I had a very good conversation with a apostle friend of mine out in Virginia, and I had a really good conversation with her. And I've got a lot of people that support me, my mother-in-law, my church, and everybody else. But I went to one of my spiritual advisors, and I said, "Here's my situation," and she said, "I got a question for you." She said, "Let's say you went to the mall and you bumped into somebody you haven't seen in 5 years. What do you say?" I was like, "Hey, how you doing?" She goes, no, other than saying how you doing. When they say, "What do you do for work?" I was like, "Oh, I'm a photographer. I've been doing this." And she goes, "Stop." She said, "Why'd you say photographer?" She says, "You've been a machinist for 33 years.
Right.
Mm.
Yeah.
She says, and I was like, "Oh, I didn't realize that." She goes, no. She goes, "When you say you are a photographer," she said, "there's a difference between what you were doing and what you're called to do."
Mm.
She said, all she said was, she said, "Look at it from a different point of view. Your job that you had for the longest time is the door closing over there, but what is opening up over here?" She says, "You're looking for all of these different, because we do this. Is that God, give me a sign, show me what to do." And we're looking for this verbal, words in our heads kind of thing like that. And, that clear visual sign of where we're supposed to be going. And sometimes that God doesn't talk to us like that.
Right.
And this person just sat down and said to me, she said, "Your gift is your photography." She said, "That's your calling." She said, "The way that you got into photography with your son, God did that to you to get you to this place." She said, so, and that's not why I quit, but it just made me feel better knowing I was going in the direction of what I felt my calling was and what my destiny was.
Right.
So that was a very long way to answer your question.
No, hey, there
No,
is no such thing as that. Yeah, Ty, go ahead. What you gotta say?
I love the story because like it just seems like once again you're put at a door where you think you're gonna be going through it, but little do you know your hand, your thumbprint, or your keys don't work, and you're frustrated. You're like, "What's going on? I was told that like this is what I'm gonna be doing," and just how God has such a big influence on
Mhm.
what is meant for you. And I love how you keep bringing up God because He has such a powerful impact on our lives,
Mhm.
and because even starting from young, based on how you're raised, or even when you do have that moment where you finally believe in Him and put all your faith in Him. Until that happens, we're going to continue being confused,
Yep.
struggling, and even having anxiety. And I just love how you said that because it almost sounds like the moment you like it was waiting for you to leave. And since you never left that job for so long, it just kept on putting more weight on you. more weight on you. And it was like the shadow that was, basically sitting on your shoulders. And once you're gone, it's like, oh, well, he doesn't belong here no more. I guess my job is done. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So I just like how you were able to overcome that, but then also get the opportunity to see, like, all right, now that I've taken a step back, why is it that I had to leave? You know what?
Mm.
This is the reason why.
Yeah.
God said this isn't me,
Yeah.
and I have such a bigger purpose. And seeing all that come true, and now, hey Ron, if you didn't leave, you wouldn't have met us. We wouldn't have met you. So I just appreciate that you
Yeah.
got to find
That is true.
your journey, and also finding your journey through your son, finding your journey through being a super dad. Because I also recall that you were saying that you were there for every sport and the
Yep.
teams that they played for. So like, I'm sure that your time was like completely packed, the
Yep.
full 24 hours every day.
Mhm.
So I just want to say congratulations, and I
Thank you.
applaud you for doing the things that you're doing, because that takes a lot of patience, a lot of discipline, a lot of respect, because you're looking again and also acknowledging yourself. And you have such a great team, like your wife, your church, and your mother-in-law, that support you. Because even for men today, like, a lot of men don't have that kind of circle or people in their corner. So to have those kind of people, like, that's really inspiring to hear.
Yeah. That is where people sometimes forget. We are talking about photography, and sometimes we forget. I was talking to you guys before off air that, a mindset, where we come from and what we were birthed into, is not always a perfect situation.
Mm,
And by no means, I grew up in a very, very, difficult home life, parents being divorced, going through all of that and getting involved with bad crowds and things like that. And all of a sudden you look back and, I don't even, sometimes I don't even recognize myself now when I look back
Mm.
at where I came from. And I don't discount where I came from, because I really feel like that's what made. I feel like the
mm,
adversity that I went through was literally what toughened me up, got me to where I am. That adversity I had to face every single day. Even to the point of having my second son, he was born with a rare blood disorder that only happens in 3% of the entire population of the world, like legit Earth.
Mm.
He was born with a disorder, a blood disorder. So we had to go back into the hospital again. We had to go back into the NICU again. And the same doctors and nurses that took care of my first son were all the same doctors and nurses that came back and
That's
took
God
care of my
again.
second.
That's
So
God again.
and,
I
and
just,
Oh, it seems like three is a prevalent number. Like,
Yeah.
first with your first son and then your second son, and it's a 3% or three
yeah,
percent of the world, and then you have a
yeah,
3% chance of,
of
him
life. Yeah.
surviving. So it's like
Huh.
interesting. Like, maybe three could be like a how should I say it? A gracious number to an extent, like where even when there's doubt, once the number three comes up, or even maybe an angelic number,
Yeah,
because
have faith.
every
Yeah.
every numbers have
Yeah.
meaning.
Yeah. Number 3 is completion. And number
Mm,
7 is perfection, spiritual perfection. So 3 is completion. So 1 is unity, and 2 is double witness. So uh, there's always those things, and anybody that focuses on, you can find truth in anything you focus on,
Right.
hmm
even bad things.
Yep.
You can find truth in anything you focus on. You can find truth in everything that you do. And we just chose to focus on the statistics. Were there with both of my sons. Both of my sons were not supposed to be here. So I know the statistics were saying they have to prepare you to saying, well, if this might happen, this might happen, this might happen, this might happen. And it's not a constant bombardment, but it's also something that's constantly in our mind. And when I called every single morning, even when my second son was in the hospital, I called first thing in the morning and I would say, how's my man of God doing today? I didn't want to hear what he could possibly be facing when he turns 5 years old or 6 years old or anything else down in the future. I said, you tell me what we're dealing with today. How's his heart? How's his oxygen, apneas, bradycardias, and any medical issues? My son had bilateral hernia fixtures inside of the hospital. He had eye surgery inside of the hospital. So all these different things. I was like, don't tell me what's going to happen, what could happen, 2 years from now. Only the day by day basis. I can only handle the day by day basis. Tell me what he's going through today so that we can pray him through today. And then tomorrow we'll deal with tomorrow, and next week and next month, and so on and so forth.
Facts.
So,
Mm,
and I feel like that was smart of us to do, because you can be overwhelmed by all of the possibilities that could happen, it can overwhelm you so much that it deters you from being able to focus on something good today.
Yeah, and I love that you
That
have
was well
that
said.
that step by step process is important, right? You can only promise today.
Yeah.
I can promise today that we can pray through it, have faith in it, and we can get through that. Tomorrow's a day we don't know. I can't promise tomorrow, right? In anything. So that's why the next day when we wake up, we got to be grateful for that. Grateful for the fact that I got a chance. He got a chance in that situation that you were in. So it's like telling also the person that was on the phone, like, I don't want to hear the possibilities of tomorrow. I just want to know how is he doing today? Because I and Tyler also always say that words have a lot of power.
They do.
And depending on how our conversation goes, if you're just telling me about what's gonna happen tomorrow and it's negative, then that negativity is like an energy that's in the air that
100%.
like kind of affects me, my kid, my family, and I don't need that right now because I understand the possibilities. I understand that. I don't need to understand that anymore. What I want to understand is the possibility that things could get better, and they did.
Mhm.
And I love that. And back to what Tyler was saying when he was saying, like, the respect that you have for yourself and what you gave in for your family, and the fact that you have this circle is so important. And I want to congratulate you too. And I really think that family is important, and I think that everyone that is listening should understand that your circle determines your outcome, based on who you are as a person. Because you having the the chance actually of going to a spiritual teacher, whoever it is that you wanted to help you through something, gave you a realization. And that's what we need as people. We need someone that can love us, respect us, and value us for who we are today, and not for who we could be tomorrow or who we was then, and those other things. And it even goes back to the fact that when your spiritual teacher was asking you, like, sometimes you was talking about who you were, but the first thing that you said was who you are now. And that's kind of like the most important thing. And even for like now, getting into photography and all those things, how do you maintain your mental health when you're doing photography? Because I know after you got out of your corporate job, now you had to be head down focused for your photography. So how were you able to maintain mental health through photography and your lifestyle?
So that's a really good question. And to go back to my son really quickly about that, my second son, we purposely named him also Gabriel as a heralder, and his middle name is Seth, which is a called one. So that was very helpful for us to put a calling verbally, words wise. I feel like words and names have a lot of power.
Right.
And I wanted to make sure that, we called them according to that. So the other part I wanted to say was, how it's how I had to figure out how to disconnect from one world that was so, 33 years of my life as a machinist. And I'm what's called a skilled machinist, and everything that I made was like the drills that the dentists use in your teeth, things that small. And we did a lot of military stuff. So there was a lot of engineering and reverse engineering when it came to what I did. This wasn't just like, I worked at Home Depot for 33 years. This was a career and so how do I literally for myself now, I had to go back, and I didn't quit the corporate job and go into photography without knowing that I had a strong enough brand. I had a strong enough following. I had a strong enough brand. I had a strong enough recognition. I was even doing my full-time job at 45 hours a week because I cut myself back on purpose. I was still doing 17, 18, 19, 20 weddings a year. So I had a good foundation to step off of the corporate job to do the photography. So for me now, what I do now is it's I find the balance. And I will say this all the way through my life. Everything I did with my kids, I had to get the work life, and I had to get do the business, and I would do my editing when the kids went to bed at night, and I would do my phone calls and emails and everything. It's all about balance. It's all about balance. So for me, I have to discipline myself. So when we go on vacations, I don't get an internet package. I have to physically disconnect. because that is that time where I just need to rejuvenate. And I just literally, I sit by the pool and I just enjoy my vacation to the point where I know I'm going to come back to a lot of business and emails and things like that. But that's my balance in there, is disconnecting from that time so I can rejuvenate and go on vacation and enjoy my time down there and just disconnect from all of that stuff so that when I come back, it's hit the ground running, getting back into business. So that's a two-edged sword question. So the easiest way to explain it is you just got to find the balance.
Right. And it excuse me. It also sounds as you seem really good as someone that can really live in the moment, like right now, right? Because I think a lot of us, even around our age, me and Tyler are 25, and in this generation with technology, a lot of people are still connected with social media and all those other things and what's going on there and what they hear, that when they are on vacation or anything else that they're doing, they're still connected with that when they're trying to connect with something else. And it's kind of like where they can't really focus because they're so anxious and worried about what's going on elsewhere, like if they're missing out. And it's kind of like, that don't matter. What matters is right here. What's in front of me is my reality. My reality is not what's behind me, it's what's in front of me.
We're not promised tomorrow.
Exactly.
We're not promised tomorrow. So for me, that's what I had to do, was I just have to disconnect. And even sometimes during the day, I will literally just put my phone down for a little while and just do something else, go outside and rake some leaves or something like that, just to find that time to kind of like just social media. And I've said this, and I've been doing a lot of videos on it too. It's a necessary evil. When you're a business owner, it's necessary. If you're not on social media, which is free, and not advertising your business, which is free, where do you expect to be in 5 years?
Exactly.
It's something that is necessary. But for me, it's finding the balance in doing just enough social media to keep my name relevant, to keep my brand relevant, but not enough where I'm so overcome where I can't go 15 minutes without touching my phone. And there's a lot of people that are like that, where they're literally, go everywhere with their phone, and it's never out of their pocket. It's never on. So even when I sat down with you guys, I put my phone on vibrate, I put my watch on vibrate, so there was no distractions and no disruptions from anything, because this is important to me. And I feel like sometimes we have to disconnect when we're doing something important. Otherwise, you're not really there.
Right.
And if you're not really there, you're wasting the person in front of you's time. You're wasting the person, and it's very disrespectful. In my opinion, and this might be my only opinion, and I get that, but when you're having a conversation with somebody, it's eyeballed. I'm old school. Shake my hand, look me in the eye, tell me your story. That's how I am. I don't want to talk to the top of your head.
Right.
Because you're looking down at your phone. I don't want to do that. We live in an age right now, and you guys are relating to this. We're living in an age right now that people cannot even have a face-to-face conversation. It's face to forehead and it's face to head, because we can't disconnect.
I really love that you say that, because everything you said, I totally agree. I think that people don't give the undivided attention anymore. They're always on their phone.
They don't.
Oh yeah.
And there's a time for that. But sometimes.
Exactly. Right. There's a time and place for everything. And I agree. Like, I think it's disrespectful when you're, especially like if someone's being vulnerable with you, or you're telling a story about something that's personalized to you. It's kind of like you want to be able to look them in their eye and be like, hey, I'm listening, nod, and be like, I'm listening. And, going back to the fact that how social media is, it also shows, because I'm actually doing an intervention for school. And one of the things I want to talk about is communication, and how in the day and age that we're at now, especially after COVID, communication has dropped dramatically to the extent that 18% more of conversation is literally by written or email. And how disconnecting that is the fact that I could say one thing, text you, hey Ron, blah 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 blah, right? And you could get a totally interpretation on that. But I meant something else, because there's tone in that, there's body language, there's eye movement, there's all those other things. That's why having something like this.
And that's not what's in a text. Tone, eyeballs, misinterpretation. That's not what in a text.
Ex-
Words are different.
Exactly. And the other thing too is like, if I wanted to have a question based on whatever you say or whatever I say, you can ask me, right? Oh, so do you mean this? And I got you instantly. But over a text or an email or anything like that, there's a lot of anxiety in there because it's like, oh, I don't know what they meant, or oh, this got me kind of upset, or wow, that's pretty sad. Like, are they okay? And it's like, no, they were just perfectly fine or whatever. So it's kind of the fact that communication is so key, and that's why, like, having a podcast like this and doing it in person is so important. And just being a creator doesn't mean you always have to delve yourself into that.
Absolutely.
You know what I mean? And I love that you say that, because even for, me, I had to, disconnect a lot of times. Sometimes, I'll be on it a little bit more than I feel like I needed to, but it's kind of realizing that first. I'm first aware of it. And when I'm conscious of it, then I could do something conscious to do something about it. People think that, oh, I'm going to grow and I'm going to do this without having a conscious thought. First is that thought, and then you had to like kind of replace that with something that is a little bit more healthier. So, and I know that when it comes to like social media, we try to be really creative on there as much as possible. And that could be a little bit overwhelming too, especially as a creator. How do you do well with creative blocks?
I feel like everybody has a creative block once in a while. And sometimes we might not ever admit it, or sometimes we get stuck there. So there, you sit down and you talk to Michael and stuff like that. And if, as a business owner and as a creative also, and what I do is visual, I create images and I create moments within the couple in the image. So I got to get 3 aspects in one shot. I remember, and this is my philosophy for photography, is you can look right now. Let's say you had a loved one that had passed away. And if you took a picture up and you looked at it, your mind will instantly go to the moment, something good that you remembered about either when that picture was taken or something about that person. A picture will always trigger a memory every time, good and bad. Sometimes we can remember some bad things that came along with that. So for me, my creative block is I have to come in and on my social media and in my business, I have to come up with something that stands out. If my business, as a visual person, my images have to stand out. When you go to my website, if you're like, that looks okay. Or when you pull up that website, it's like, whoa, look at that. You're going to lose their attention. So for me creatively, I have to do things that visually will draw people in and keep them. So there's always, if you don't stand out, you're only blending in. And as a business owner, you don't want to blend in.
Right.
You meet me for 5 minutes, I ain't blending in. I stand out. I mean, I'm just that vocal about who I am and my personality.
Energy.
That's my energy. That's who I am. And when I get somebody on the phone, like when a client calls me up and, they'll send me an email, and there's so many people that are younger right now that don't even want to get on the phone. They don't even have a phone call. And I need to hear your voice. First of all, I want to make sure that I'm not being ghosted or anything like that. So I'll say, hey, do you have 2 minutes to chat on the phone? Yeah. So I'll talk to them on the phone, ask them about their wedding. How did they get proposed to? Congratulate them on engagements. And I'll go through the whole bunch of questions, asking them, they're asking me. And then I'll get off the phone. It's like, what was your deciding factor when you hired me? And they were like, first thing they say is, you're the only photographer that said congratulations on our engagement.
What?
That's what they said. Or they're like, oh my God, Ron's personality is amazing. His energy is awesome. He's going to be so much fun to work with. You can't get that in an email.
Right.
You have to hear my voice to get the energy that I have. And 95% of the time I will book them because of my personality. That's how creatively I have to be like on all the time, because this is me. When I'm meeting that client for the first time, when I met you for the first time, you and I just started talking right away. Bang, 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 bang. Tyler was there. We just started talking about a whole bunch of stuff. And then what was that? Almost like a year ago now.
Yeah.
Basically,
here we are.
How fast?
Here we are. You came to my studio. We took a look over there, and it's like, oh my God, we talk about the cards and stuff like that. I gave you some ideas. And now here we are. If you, at your age, couldn't look me in the eye and have a conversation with me, we would not be sitting here today.
Yeah, probably not, because I didn't get to feel that energy. That kind of is like a quantum entanglement is what I call it. And it's kind of like when two people come together, you know, once we shake our hand and
Yeah.
we already got energy exchanged, you know what I mean? That's what a handshake is, and
That's what it is.
it's an exchange.
Breaking the
So
touch barrier.
exactly. So no, I totally agree, and I think more people need to understand that being engaging is not through text, it's not through email. Engaging is using your senses, right? Hearing, feeling, seeing,
All
right?
5
Smelling.
senses.
Exactly. You can't use your senses through a text. Yeah, you're texting with your hands, but you're not feeling nothing. You're not shaking someone's hand. You're not getting to know someone actually. So
And Tyler,
totally
to
agree.
mention your thing about smelling, it is amazing that this how we're so wonderfully made that we have 5 senses: touch, feel, eyes, ears, mouth, smell. And I could walk into, there was a certain smell to the soap that you had to wash your hands with in the NICU. So when you walk in the doors, it's automatic doors. You walk in and you have to wash your hands for 2 solid minutes under hot water with soap. And there's a foot pedal on the ground, and you have to wash your hands with soap before you can even go into the NICU. You have to gown up, mask up, everything. There is a smell in the soap that to this day, it triggers my memory to go back 23 years ago to watch my son laying in that NICU for an isolate in the bed and all that stuff like that for 6 months. That every single day for 6 months, every single day, I got up in the morning. How's my man of God doing? I went to work, picked my wife up. At the end of the night, we went there for supper time, and we went there and every single day for 6 months, I put a scripture of faith and hope on the front of his bed or his isolate for 165 days.
Wow.
And that smell that you're talking about, that triggers my memory every single time.
Wow, look at
And-
that. You
and-
put
and
so much
it's the
effort.
165 days.
It's the association with it too, because like there's so much consistency around it. Like you and your wife going to visit him, the process, washing your hands, getting the cap, the gown, and you know, with consistency like that, it's almost as if like you can relive that at any moment. It's just you need a fragment of it, and that's how special
That's what
it is.
pictures do. That's what
Exactly.
pictures do. That's what
And you
pictures
know,
do.
and I loved how you were bringing this up earlier, which is bringing me to this point. Like I remember back in elementary school and middle school, I had my little camera, and this is before touchscreen phones really became a big thing. But I had a camera, and I was always taking pictures, field trips, regular class days. I could be in the hallway on my way to the bathroom, and I'll just take these random pictures. And I didn't know what made me so photogenic, but it was just like wow, like just capturing every moment. So now when I go to my grandmother's house, and her desktop has all those pictures, and now when I see those pictures, I could think about where I was
Isn't that
at that
amazing?
time.
Yep.
And it's crazy because like I'm like wow, you know what? For the years that I wasn't photogenic and I was more camera shy,
Mhm.
I wish I would have taken pictures then still,
Mhm.
because it's like now I could only hope that I could remember when there's so many things in a year that I could be remembering,
Yep.
but that I can't remember anything from 3 years ago.
Yep.
So it's like, and you know, Angel brought up a great question as far as like what you do during creative blocks. I wanted to ask you personally, you know, obviously you have multiple things uh that you've managed in different segments and how to find balance with that. For you personally, what's a good day off? Like if you're not at work, you're not taking pictures, you know, let's say this is Ron's quality times himself. What does that look like for you?
What's a day off?
Yeah, that's
Tyler,
okay.
and I'm looking at both of you guys. When you are creative or a business owner, is there truly ever a day off?
No.
My answer is no, and it's really not, and it's sad. It really is. But I'll be perfectly honest with you. I'm glad I'm that way because it made me and put me in the position and place that I'm at. If I don't like being lackadaisical, I actually feel sometimes a little bit of anxiety when I'm not photographing something. My idea of disconnecting when I go on vacation is one thing. A day of off for me is probably going to the beach with my wife. So we'll get in the car, we go to the beach for the day. I will walk up and down the beach. I'll go over by the rocks. I'll sit down over there. The beach that we go to doesn't have a very good signal, and I'm actually thankful for that. And I'll just put my phone down. And sometimes I will take my camera with me, but I'm not photographing with the intent of people. I'm not photographing with the intent of capturing something. I'm just photographing with the intent of just capturing that moment that I'm in. So I'll sit on those rocks and I'll just sit down and I'll just look at the beach, look at the water. So probably my day of disconnect is when my wife and I go to the beach. I feel like that would be a day off because pack a lunch, pack some chairs, go sit at the beach for a couple hours. It's about an hour and a half away, so we drive there, drive home. So that's a day off to me.
Yeah,
That's a good question.
That's pretty fair. Oh yeah, I
I
love
love
it.
that
Yes.
answer because you know, not even just because you're a business owner and there's really not days off, but more of like finding the beauty and the simplicity of things. So
Mhm.
you're still taking your craft with you. Like, I'm gonna have this camera no matter what.
Mhm.
If anything, this is my second wife on the side.
Yeah.
But besides that, it's more of like, you know, let me take these pictures. We only have one life.
Yep.
This is not YOLO.
Yep.
But let me enjoy this life. Let me enjoy this moment. And, you know, because I already connect and socialize and take pictures of everybody else.
Yep.
Let me, and it's kind of funny because my Instagram handle is in Ty's vision. So in this case, it's in Ron's vision. And, you know,
I think
I
he
just
just
like how you're
froze.
capturing your
Yeah.
perspective. So that's just something that's great.
Yeah, and
Yeah.
for me, it's I don't as a creative, and I don't know if this is a creative thing or if this is a physical thing that I'm going through right now, but it's very I don't even I don't sleep very well. So
Mm.
I feel like sometimes when I'm waking up, like even this morning, I was up at 3 o'clock, tossing and turning, got out of bed at 4:30. I did 4.5 miles on the treadmill this morning. Got up, I did some editing. I did one of my podcasts. Started editing that. My son was going away for the day for a job, so I talked to him in the morning, and then I came here with you guys. So for me, it's like that. There really is no, when you're a business owner, your mind is constantly thinking and working and dealing and processing, and what can I do next to do my next YouTube video or my podcast or anything else. So it's always going.
Right. I agree.
And it's good and bad, because I feel like that can get you to the next level, but sometimes it does make you very weary and tired when it comes
Yeah.
to always going and always
Right.
processing, and always it does get pretty long.
Yeah.
So
I totally agree, and it's kind of like having that balance, like you mentioned. Yeah.
balance.
And so what we're definitely, I love how this conversation is great, and then I think I have so many more questions, but that's why there's always a part 2. And I wanted to share something with you.
All right.
And I know we talked about this before, and also you helped me too when I went over to visit as well. So I'd really appreciate it. But this time it's physically in our hands.
I love it. I love
And
it.
everybody that's listening, if you're watching us on YouTube, I'm gonna put it out right here.
There it is.
You can see it. This right here, if you see it, it's called Enough Said. It's a card game that me and Tyler we recreated. This is our sample. By the time this episode releases, honestly, we probably already made an event and stuff like that, and it's gonna be great. It's gonna be great.
Can't wait.
But officially, it was just a couple of small things that we've made. But the questions itself stood the same. So instead of doing our rally for cry, which we've done for many of our guests, we're gonna change it up by having you pick 4 cards out of this deck, and with those 4 cards, we're gonna have you answer them to a word minimum to a sentence maximum. So I'm gonna reach out, and you don't look at them.
Okay.
Pick 4 here.
We joke because before we started this, I said I didn't know what any questions were.
Yep.
So nervous about it, and now you're like, oh, you're gonna have 4 cards, and you don't know what they're gonna be.
Yep.
Either, so.
Here,
All
come
right.
on.
So 1 word minimum.
And a sentence maximum.
God, you really don't know me, Angel. I'll do my best with the.
Here, come on.
If we don't put a period at the end, then it's not technically. Do you want to put four at random or one at a time?
You can do whatever you want.
All right, let's do one.
It's destined for however. So that's
Yep.
one.
Let's do one
This
at a
is
time.
your destiny, Ron.
Let's put it down.
1.
Your destiny is calling you.
2. I'm not looking.
This is fun.
Yeah, fun for you.
Honestly, I really wonder what questions he's gonna pull out. So like drum roll, please.
Let me see.
Oh, you get to do? Oh, there you go.
Yeah, because I'm asking you.
All right. So let's see. We talk about destiny, and we talk about everything happens for a reason. I'm a firm believer in that, good and bad.
Yep.
After we just had that whole conversation, let's see where these questions come up.
You know, I'm excited. I'm excited.
All right.
Huh.
Well,
I'm
and
nervous.
Angel, by the way, let's see if whose question it was that thought of it in the process, because you never know. What if it's all 4 of Angel's questions or all 4 of mine?
Oh, so do you guys know the questions? Which ones are yours? Which ones are his?
Essentially, yeah. To a
Yeah,
degree.
kind of, basically, yeah.
We'll probably have to think about it after. But
All right.
all right. So first question. Huh.
Mhm.
Would you rather go for a walk in nature or in the city?
Oh.
City.
Okay. Right.
Mm.
So,
Okay.
all right.
We're gonna get us somewhere.
I love it. I know we could keep going too. Ron is like, hold on.
One word.
One word.
No, he's like, I could do this. He's like, I could do this. But then in his
just
head,
for
he
the
got a whole
sake of the
paragraph
episode.
written.
You're gonna be like, oh my god, that guy does not shut up.
Never. At least not us. Not us. All right. Second question is, what is one thing you are known for doing or saying?
Smile.
Huh. You know what? Actually, I agree with that. Smile reaches a mile. One word. I like that. He's holding it back. I can see it. I can see his chest getting like this.
Look, I'm not physically there, but the way he answered that, I could tell he had to cut himself off like.
No, I feel it. He's holding it. I love it. All right. Third question is, if you could explore any parallel universe, what aspect of your life would you want to see?
Future. Because I already don't like my past.
Oh, okay. Okay, seeing
Okay.
how the end of the
See?
story unfolds.
Enough
I
said.
know my past. I want to see my future.
Enough said. Enough said.
Interesting.
Let's see what he did there.
Enough said. I see what you did. I see what you did there.
All right, to our last question.
No.
You did well. What's something you want to try but haven't?
That's a what's something I'd like to try
but haven't?
I don't like this dead space time here. I honestly
Got you thinking.
I will be perfectly honest. I don't think there's anything like legit off the top of my head. You saw how quick my other answers were. I honestly don't know if there's anything off the top of my head that I would honestly say that I would like to try.
Okay.
And I'm just saying that I feel like my life has been fulfilled. There's no vacuum where I feel like I wish I would have done this and I wish I would have done that.
Right.
I don't have that in my life.
That's
so
fair.
I can't answer that question if that's
No, you did though. That's
did.
fair. And
That's
enough said. You know, I think the point of the card game is to get to know someone's mental aspect of their life, right?
Yeah.
Their personality, because personality is someone's personal reality.
Yeah.
So in your case, your reality of your life is just the fact that any chance that I took. So I can't have something I haven't tried yet because I tried it all.
Right.
Anything that I came to my mind, I'm gonna do it. Exactly.
You
You took action for everything you done. So
and the beauty of it,
Yeah.
the beauty of it is the fact that like these questions aren't limiting either. Like the questions are tailored for anybody to answer.
Anybody.
And I could say myself, like there's a multitude of things that I haven't tried, right?
Yep.
And can I be totalizing and say I'll never try that? No, because at 25, there's so many things I was saying no to when I was younger, and now here I am, and I'm doing exactly that. So it's interesting how life unfolds. So I love that in your reality, in your life, you're like, I'm content with the way things are right now, and if that means I'm gonna drink orange soda or if I'm gonna eat the same style of sandwiches for the rest of my life, that's okay because I love those sandwiches.
That's okay.
Right, exactly.
Okay.
Yeah, everybody, hey, like by the time this episode comes out, like I said, like we probably already had like a launch party and all those things, and of course, Ron, you're invited, like
Cool.
but yeah, no. So this game is essentially, perfect icebreaker questions to get to really know someone, see their personality, know their values, what do you do in their free time, because that's essentially what someone does with their values, right? And it's really just to grab from small talk to get into a deeper talk, because sometimes we go into how's the weather but don't know how to go from there. So essentially that's what this game is for. And we got a little goal of why we made the game and a little tip. Tell me more if you want to know a little bit more about the person when they answer it. And yeah, so this is the card game, and we're truly excited, and we're also excited that you are the first person on the podcast to try it too. So Yes, it's awesome, and I want to make sure I say your last name right. How you say it?
Lemelin.
Lemelin. Okay,
Lemelin.
bet. Okay, I just want to make sure.
Lemelin.
So yeah, everybody, welcome, like Veron Lemelin. I say that right. Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. Okay. Yes. Thank you for coming. Yes, this conversation
Thank
was
you. Thank you.
awesome. I
Sorry,
love
I'm going to
it.
get to any more questions, but
No, it's okay. If
Oh,
anything,
that's
there's
for part
always
two. That's the sequel.
part 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7. Hey, we could keep going because, and not
Hey,
only
it's not.
that,
Mm,
yeah.
it's not a trilogy. It's a franchise, and we're
There
starting
you
that
go.
here.
Yes, there we go. See, I love the metaphors, poetry. Yes, slam. Yes, everybody. I hope you really guys got something from this episode. We were talking about communication, social media, creative blocks, being a creator, balance, life, spirituality, God, faith, all those things. And yes, please try to apply that to your own lifestyle. If there's something that we haven't talked about enough on this episode, please comment down below on your favorite podcast platform, and also follow us on Instagram at the Rally Cries, because we're gonna do a lot of updates there, especially if when we do events or anything like that. So hopefully by the time then you already know what to do. So yeah, guys, until next time, make sure that you take one step at a time.
And one day at a time. Stay easy, guys.
Peace.